In the modern history of Vietnamese criminology, there have been few cases that left such a bitter aftertaste and such a devastating collapse of public trust as the downfall of Nguyen Thanh Hai's so-called Night Empire on the afternoon of the first day of Lunar New Year 2026. This was not merely another criminal case marked by a list of serious charges. It was a moment when society collectively realized that evil does not always wear a brutal face. Sometimes it disguises itself as kindness, righteousness, and sacrifice. Vietnamese society has witnessed notorious drug lords, serial killers, and massive corruption scandals involving trillions of dong. But Nguyen Thanh Hai was a very different kind of antagonist. He did not step into the public eye as a criminal. On the contrary, he appeared as a living saint, a modern-day Loc Văn Tien, a Robin Hood figure roaming the dusty roads of Binh Duong and the southeastern provinces, claiming to fight crime and rescue the vulnerable. Millions followed him online, thousands admired him, and countless articles praised him as a fearless man who asked for nothing in return. That is why when investigators from the Ho Chi Minh City Police simultaneously moved in and arrested Nguyen Thanh Hai on the very first day of the new year, the truth that emerged struck public opinion like a freezing slap to the face. The 55-year-old man who once declared loudly, "Where there is crime, there is me," was not handcuffed for chasing criminals, but because he himself was one. Alongside Hai, 40 other suspects were detained, a staggering number that made one thing unmistakably clear. This was not the misstep of an individual, but a well-organized criminal syndicate with hierarchy, discipline, and meticulous operations. The preliminary investigation conclusions, announced the same afternoon, poured cold water over society's collective faith. 5 particularly serious charges were filed: extortion, fraud and appropriation of property, human trafficking, organizing and brokering illegal cross-border migration, and abusing democratic freedoms to infringe upon the interests of the state and the lawful rights of organizations and individuals. Among these, the most painful and ironic were human trafficking and extortion. The man who had built his reputation on rescuing victims sold abroad turned out to be a key figure in a human trafficking network himself. The one who preached compassion for the poor was, in reality, draining the last savings of the most desperate families. To understand how Nguyen Thanh Hai managed to deceive society for so long, one must look directly at the most powerful tool of the 21st century that he mastered: social media. Hai and his accomplices did nothing spontaneously. They were masters of emotional manipulation. Their network of Facebook, TikTok, and YouTube accounts functioned like a private television station, following carefully calculated scripts. The videos all adhered to the same emotionally charged formula: Hai and his brothers charging into dangerous areas, squalid boarding houses, dark alleys, even murky border zones. The audio was designed for maximum impact: sirens blaring, shouted threats toward criminals, and most importantly, the sobbing, trembling cries of rescued victims. The message was always the same: rescues were free, done purely from the heart, without taking a single dong. In a society saturated with negative news, these images acted like a powerful psychological stimulant. People shared the videos, praised the man behind them, and, most crucially, believed in him completely. A rugged, fearless figure standing up to evil became a source of collective comfort. As the investigation expanded, police identified another key figure: Huynh Cao Corn, Hai's right-hand man and the director behind many of the staged rescues. Corn admitted to exploiting TikTok and Facebook to post carefully orchestrated videos. Some rescues featured victims who were actually actors. Some tears were purely performative. Some dangerous situations were entirely staged. All of it served one purpose: harvesting views, likes, and credibility, and building the brand of street nights. These social media channels became massive funnels, drawing in families who were desperately searching for missing loved ones. When people typed keywords like rescue from Cambodia or save trafficked victims, Hai and Korn's faces appeared at the top of search results, like saviors descending in a moment of despair. In reality, families whose children were tricked into working in Cambodian casinos or scam compounds were often driven to absolute panic. They received videos of their sons or daughters being beaten, electrocuted, starved, accompanied by ransom demands. In that desperation, they turned to Nguyen Thanh Hai. But Hai never stormed criminal compounds as the videos suggested. He simply picked up the phone, not to call foreign police, but to contact the very bosses and guards on the other side of the border. Hai negotiated directly with them. If the traffickers demanded a ransom of 185 to 240 million dong, Hai's group would quote the families 280 to 400 million dong. The difference, hundreds of millions of dong, went straight into their pockets. They turned themselves into brokers of human lives. Despite constantly claiming their rescues were free, their operations followed a brutally simple rule: no money, no rescue. Families were forced to transfer money in advance to intermediary accounts. If they could not pay, nothing would happen. The desperate pleas and tears of impoverished mothers meant nothing to these self-proclaimed knights. They justified exorbitant sums with excuses about travel costs, bribes, and dangerous routes. Even investigators were chilled by how closed and perfect this criminal model was. Hai's group controlled not only the exit, but also the entry. On the outbound side, they exploited the demand for light work, high-pay jobs to organize illegal border crossings into Cambodia. From October 2024 until their arrest, around 900 people were trafficked across the border and sold into modern-day hells. On the return side, when victims were no longer profitable or when families tried to bring them home, Hai's group reappeared as heroic rescuers, extracting ransom money. It was a chillingly efficient criminal business model, creating victims, then rescuing the very same victims for profit, earning twice from a single human life. The numbers revealed by authorities stunned the public. At least 120 victims were directly extorted under the guise of rescue. From 2023 onward, the total amount of money illegally obtained reached 16.7 billion dong, money scraped together from sweat, tears, high-interest loans, and the sale of land and houses of poor rural families. Nguyen Thanh Hai alone pocketed 2.2 billion dong. In the final crackdown, authorities managed to genuinely rescue only 38 victims. The damage caused by this case extends far beyond financial losses. The deeper harm lies in the invisible wounds inflicted on society. Public trust in charitable and volunteer activities has been severely shaken. Genuine street nights and people doing good work now face suspicion and scrutiny. The fact that Hai and his accomplices were glorified and lived lavishly for so long through deception may lead some young people to believe that mastering media and performance is enough to gain money and fame, regardless of ethics. Moreover, organizing the illegal cross-border movement of nearly 900 people created serious breaches in national security, border order, and immigration control. With 5 charges filed, the penalties facing Nguyen Thanh Hai and his network are extremely severe. Human trafficking committed in an organized manner and repeatedly can carry sentences of 15 to 20 years in prison or even life imprisonment. Extortion involving particularly large sums falls under the harshest sentencing brackets. The charge of abusing democratic freedoms serves as a fitting punishment for exploiting social media to deceive the public and destabilize social order. The Nguyen Thanh Hai case closes a tragic chapter, but it also leaves behind a bitter lesson. Clothes don't make the monk, and the title of knight doesn't guarantee moral purity. In the digital age, truth is not always what appears on the screen. It is time for social media users and ordinary citizens alike to develop sharper judgment and resist blind trust in self-appointed heroes. Trust should rest in the law and legitimate authorities. And for those who contemplate exploiting charity and compassion for profit, the handcuffs on Win Tang Hai's wrists stand as a stark warning. No matter how convincing the performance, every act has its final curtain, and the price of selling trust is always higher than any illicit gain. Thank you for watching this story. If you found it meaningful, please subscribe, turn on notifications, and share this video. And now it's time to say goodbye. Thank you for staying with Societal Stories.